Welcome to Revenge by Eve. Sit back, relax, and enjoy today's story.
I sat across from my husband at our favourite restaurant watching him lie about where he'd been all weekend, and instead of confronting him, I smiled and ordered dessert, because I'd already given him enough rope to hang himself. Before this story goes any further, tell me, would you have called him out right there, or done what I did? And as you listen, comment where you're listening from. I read every one. My name is Eve Winters, and for 9 years I thought I had the kind of marriage people envied. My husband Tyler was a senior sales executive at a pharmaceutical company, charming in that effortless way that made clients trust him and co-workers want to be around him. We met when I was 26 and he was 28, both of us at a mutual friend's wedding where we ended up seated at the same table for dinner. He made me laugh that night. Really laugh, the kind that comes from your stomach and makes your face hurt. We talked through the entire reception, swapped numbers, and had our first date 3 days later at an Italian place downtown that became our spot over the years. I worked as a paediatric nurse at the Children's Hospital, and our schedules complemented each other well. I did 3 12-hour shifts a week, which gave me 4 days off. Tyler travelled occasionally for work, but was home most weekends. We built a life that felt stable and real. We got married 2 years after we met in a small ceremony at a vineyard, surrounded by close friends and family. Tyler cried when I walked down the aisle, and I remember thinking that I'd found someone who truly saw me, who loved me as much as I loved him. Our house was a modest 3-bedroom in a quiet neighbourhood with good schools, even though we didn't have kids yet. We talked about it sometimes, maybe in a few years, once we'd travelled more, once we'd saved more. There was no urgency. We had time. Sunday mornings were our sacred routine. Tyler would make coffee while I made pancakes, and we'd sit on the back porch reading different sections of the newspaper, occasionally reading passages aloud to each other. Simple, comfortable, ours. He'd leave me notes sometimes, sticky notes on the bathroom mirror before early meetings. "You're going to save lives today. I love you." Text messages during my shifts. "Can't wait to hear about your day. Dinner's on me tonight." I trusted him completely, the kind of trust that doesn't even think to question, because there's never been a reason to. Our friend group was solid, couples we'd known for years, people we vacationed with and spent holidays around. Tyler's best friend since college, Ryan, had married my college roommate, Melissa. The 4 of us were inseparable, doing couples game nights and weekend trips to the beach. Life felt good, secure. Like we'd figured out the formula for happiness and were just living it out day by day. I can see now that I was complacent. That comfort made me blind to what was building just beneath the surface. The first warning sign came about 18 months ago, though I didn't recognize it as such. Tyler started working later. Not every night, but 2 or 3 times a week, he'd text around 6, saying he was stuck in a client dinner or a last-minute strategy session and would be home late. "Don't wait up," the messages always said. At first, I didn't mind. His job was demanding, and I understood that client relationships required after-hours socializing. Plus, my shifts at the hospital were long and exhausting, so sometimes it was nice to come home, take a bath, and go to bed early without feeling like I was neglecting him. But then I started noticing he was more protective of his phone. Tyler had never been secretive before. He'd leave his phone on the counter while he showered, let me grab it to change the music in the car, use it to look up recipes while cooking. Now it was always face down, always within arm's reach, and he'd changed the lock screen from our wedding photo to some generic landscape. When I mentioned it, he shrugged. Work's been pushing us on data security. New protocols about keeping phones locked. Made sense. His company handled sensitive pharmaceutical information. He started going to the gym more. Tyler had always been in decent shape, but suddenly he was going 5 days a week, sometimes before work, sometimes during lunch. He bought new clothes, fitted shirts, expensive jeans, cologne I didn't recognize. "You look great," I told him one morning as he got dressed. "Thanks. Just trying to take better care of myself. We're not getting any younger." He said it with a smile, kissed my forehead, and left for work. I told myself he was just going through a health kick. Men do that sometimes, especially as they approach their mid-30s. It wasn't suspicious, it was self-improvement. But then came the distance. Tyler stopped asking about my day with genuine interest. He'd say, "How was work?" but his eyes would be on his phone, his mind clearly elsewhere. When I'd share stories about patients or difficult shifts, he'd give distracted ahas and "that's crazy" responses that told me he wasn't really listening. Our Sunday morning routine started to erode. He'd sleep later, claim he was exhausted from the week, and by the time he woke up, I'd already finished the paper and started on errands. Sex became infrequent. Once every week or two, and even then, it felt perfunctory. Like he was doing it out of obligation rather than desire. I tried to talk to him about it. "Tyler, I feel like we've been disconnected lately." "What do you mean?" "I don't know. You seem distant, distracted. Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine, Eve. Work's just been stressful. You know how it gets during Q4. Everyone's trying to hit their numbers." "I know. But this feels like more than work stress. You're overthinking it, I promise. We're good." He kissed me, told me he loved me, and the conversation ended there. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. So I pushed down the nagging feeling in my gut and told myself I was being paranoid. The situation escalated over the next few months in ways that were harder to ignore. Tyler started traveling more. Quick trips. Overnight to Chicago, a weekend in Atlanta, 3 days in Denver, always for client meetings or conferences. He'd call me from hotel rooms and tell me about his day, about the boring presentations and mediocre room service. Nothing seemed wrong with the calls themselves, but something felt off. Staged, almost. When he'd come home from these trips, he'd be exhausted but also strangely energized. Like he'd been living a different life for a few days and was readjusting to this one. I started noticing money discrepancies. Not huge amounts, but enough to register. $200 here, $150 there, from our joint account with vague descriptions like client dinner or conference expenses that should have been covered by his corporate card. When I asked about it, Tyler got defensive. "I had to cover some things up front. I'll get reimbursed." It's just happening a lot lately. "Are you seriously going to micromanage my spending? I make good money, Eve. We're not hurting financially." The edge in his voice was new, sharp, like I'd accused him of something rather than asked a simple question. I backed off. I didn't want to fight, didn't want to be the controlling wife questioning every dollar. Around this time, Melissa started acting weird around me. We'd been close for years, we met for coffee every other week, texted constantly, were in each other's lives in that deep way old friends are. But suddenly she was distant, short responses to texts. Too busy to meet up. Awkward when our couple's group got together. "Is everything okay with you and Melissa?" I asked Tyler one night. "What do you mean?" "She's been acting strange lately. Did something happen?" "Not that I know of. Maybe she's just busy with work." But it felt like more than that. It felt like she was avoiding me specifically. Ryan seemed uncomfortable too. During a game night at their house, I caught him watching Tyler with this odd expression, something between concern and disgust. When I got up to help Melissa in the kitchen, she was quiet. He focused intensely on arranging cheese on a platter. "Are you okay?" I asked. "Fine, just tired." "Mel, if something's wrong, you can talk to me." She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes. Pity? Guilt? "Everything's fine, Eve. I'm just stressed about work stuff." But I knew Melissa well enough to know when she was lying. I started feeling paranoid, like everyone knew something I didn't, like I was walking through my own life blindfolded while everyone else could see clearly. I tried to talk to Tyler about it, but he made me feel crazy. "You're imagining things. Melissa's fine. Ryan's fine. Everyone's fine. Maybe you need to talk to someone about this anxiety." Anxiety. Like my concerns were a medical problem rather than a response to actual behavior changes, I started doubting myself. questioning every instinct, wondering if I was manufacturing problems in a perfectly good marriage because I was stressed or hormonal or just looking for drama where there wasn't any. The core betrayal happened on a Saturday morning in early November. Tyler had gone on a work trip to Philadelphia the previous Thursday, supposedly returning Friday night. But Friday evening, he texted saying the meetings ran late and he'd have to stay an extra night. Be home Saturday afternoon. I was disappointed. We'd planned to go to a new restaurant that night. But I understood. Work trips ran long sometimes. Saturday morning I was cleaning out the closet, organising winter clothes, when I found Tyler's iPad tucked behind a stack of sweaters. He'd been looking for it earlier in the week, claiming he'd misplaced it. I picked it up, my intending to put it on his nightstand so he'd see it when he got home. It lit up when I moved it, and I saw a notification preview, a message from someone named Bree. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again soon." My stomach dropped. The iPad wasn't password protected. Tyler never bothered with it since he mainly used his phone. I opened the Messages app, and I found everything. Months of messages between Tyler and Brianna. Brianna, who apparently worked in the marketing department at a vendor company his firm worked with. Brianna, who was 24 years old and looked like she belonged in a fitness magazine based on the photos they'd exchanged. The messages went back 8 months. At first, they were flirty but professional. Then they got more personal. Then they got explicit. I read about their first kiss after a conference in May, about sneaking away during client dinners, about hotel rooms in cities I thought Tyler had been in alone. The trip to Philadelphia? He'd been there with her. The weekend in Denver? With her. Atlanta? With her. Every business trip for the past 6 months had been an opportunity to be with her. I read messages where he complained about me, about how I'd let myself go after we got married, about how our sex life was boring and routine, about how being with Brianna made him feel young again. I read messages where she called him baby, and he called her beautiful, where they made plans for their future, where Tyler said he was working on an exit strategy but needed to time it right, so I wouldn't take him to the cleaners in divorce. He was planning to leave me. He just wanted to make sure he protected his assets first. I sat on the closet floor with that iPad in my hands, and I felt my entire world crumble. My chest physically hurt. My hands were shaking. I couldn't catch my breath. 9 years. 9 years of marriage, 11 years together, and he'd been planning to throw it all away for a 24-year-old he'd known for 8 months. I scrolled further back and found something worse. Messages where Brianna said she felt guilty about what we're doing to Eve, where Tyler responded, "She doesn't suspect anything. Eve's too trusting, too focused on her work to notice what's happening at home." He'd used my trust against me, used my dedication to my job, to helping sick children, as evidence that I deserved to be betrayed. I found messages to Ryan too. Tyler had confided in his best friend about the affair months ago. Ryan had told him he was making a mistake, that he needed to end it before I found out. Tyler's response, "I will. Just not yet. I need to figure some things out first." So Ryan knew, which meant Melissa probably knew, which explained her strange behaviour. My friends had watched me smile and laugh and live my life while knowing my husband was cheating on me. I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes. Hours. Time felt suspended. Eventually I heard the garage door open. Tyler was home. I quickly closed the iPad, shoved it back where I'd found it, and stood up. My legs felt shaky, but I forced myself to move. I went to the bathroom, splashed cold water on my face, tried to compose myself. Tyler was in the kitchen when I came downstairs, unpacking his bag. "Hey, babe. I missed you." He came over and kissed me like nothing was wrong, like he hadn't spent the past 48 hours with another woman. I felt physically ill. "How was the trip?" I asked, my voice sounding surprisingly normal. "Exhausting. These client meetings are brutal, but I think we made good progress on the deal." Lies. All lies. Smooth, confident lies. "That's great. I'm glad it went well." We stood there in our kitchen, in the house we'd bought together, and he looked me in the eyes. And lied. And I smiled back, because something had shifted in me in that closet. Some fundamental change in how I saw the situation. I wasn't going to cry or scream or confront him. Not yet. I was going to be strategic. That was the moment I stopped waiting for them to change. I spent that night lying next to Tyler in bed, listening to him sleep, and I made my plan. The next morning, I acted completely normal. Made breakfast, kissed him goodbye when he left for work, went about my day. But while he was gone, I started gathering evidence. I took photos of every message on the iPad, downloaded the entire message history. I found his laptop and went through his email, discovering receipts for hotel rooms, jewelry, dinners at expensive restaurants I'd never been to. I created a detailed timeline of every business trip, cross-referenced with the messages, proving which trips were legitimate and which were affairs. I also started documenting our finances. I made copies of bank statements, investment accounts, retirement funds. I photographed everything we owned of value. Then I called a divorce attorney. Not to file yet, but to understand my options. She told me that in our state, infidelity didn't affect asset division, but it could affect alimony if I could prove he'd spent marital funds on the affair. Which I could. She advised me to start separating my assets quietly, to protect myself financially before he knew what was coming. So I did. I opened a separate bank account and started funneling my paychecks there. I gathered important documents, my passport, birth certificate, social security card, and put them in a safe deposit box. I consulted with a forensic accountant who helped me understand exactly how much money Tyler had spent on Brianna. Over $30,000 in 8 months. Marital money, spent on hotel rooms, gifts, trips. All of this I did while continuing to be the perfect wife. I cooked dinner, did laundry, smiled when Tyler came home, had sex when he initiated. He had no idea. But the hardest part was confronting Ryan and Melissa. I invited them to coffee, just the 3 of us. They looked nervous when they showed up. I know, I said simply. About Tyler and Brianna. I know, and I know you've known. Melissa started crying immediately. Eve, I'm so sorry. I wanted to tell you. But Ryan said, It wasn't our place, Ryan interrupted. Tyler's my best friend. I told him he needed to end it or tell you himself. But he didn't, I said. And you both watched me have dinners with him, smile at him, trust him, while knowing he was cheating. We're so sorry, Melissa sobbed. I looked at them both. These people I'd considered family. I need you to do something for me, I said. Anything, Ryan said. I need you to keep pretending you don't know that I know. When Tyler talks to you about the affair, about me, about his plans, I need you to act normal, and I need you to tell me what he says. Ryan looked uncomfortable. You want us to spy on him? I want you to help me protect myself from a man who's been lying to me for 8 months while planning to divorce me in a way that screws me financially. So yes, I want you to tell me what he's saying. They agreed, and over the next several weeks they fed me information. Tyler was planning to file for divorce in January after the holidays. He'd already consulted with an attorney. He was moving money into accounts I didn't know about, preparing to claim our assets were worth less than they actually were. He was going to blindside me, make it seem sudden, maybe even make me think it was my fault somehow. But I was going to beat him to it. I spent the next 6 weeks preparing while Tyler thought everything was fine. He continued his affair, continued his trips, continued lying to my face, and I continued documenting everything. I had a forensic accountant trace every dollar of our marital assets. I had a private investigator get additional photos of Tyler and Brianna together, damning evidence that would be useful if he tried to deny the affair. I also started rebuilding my support system. I reached out to friends I'd neglected, spent more time with my family, strengthened bonds with people who actually cared about me. In early December, Tyler told me he wanted to have a serious talk. My heart rate spiked. Was he going to do it now? File for divorce before the holidays like I'd predicted? We sat down in the living room and he took my hand. Eve, I've been doing a lot of thinking about us. Here it comes, I thought. I feel like we've grown apart, like we're not connecting the way we used to. Okay, I said calmly. I think we should try couples therapy. Really invest in our marriage. Make it a priority again. I stared at him. He was suggesting therapy while actively planning to divorce me. What brought this on? I asked. I love you, and I want us to work, but I think we need help to get back to where we were. It was masterful, really. He was creating a narrative. If we went to therapy and it didn't work, he could claim he'd tried everything. He'd look like the good guy who'd fought for the marriage. Okay, I said. Let's try therapy. His face showed relief. Really? You're open to it? Of course, I want us to work too. We hugged and he held me tight. And I felt absolutely nothing. I made an appointment with a therapist for the first week of January, knowing we'd never actually go, because I was filing for divorce on December 23rd. The payoff came exactly when I planned it. December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas, Tyler came home from work to find me sitting at the kitchen table with a manila folder in front of me. Hey babe, what's up? I slid the folder across the table. Open it. He looked confused but opened it. Inside were divorce papers, already filed, along with a detailed accounting of every penny he'd spent on Brianna, every lie he'd told, every trip he'd taken with her. His face went white. What is this? It's over, Tyler. I know about Brianna. I've known for weeks, and I've been preparing for this while you thought I was the trusting, oblivious wife you could manipulate. Eve, I can explain. No, you can't. I've read the messages, Tyler, all of them. The ones where you called me boring, the ones where you planned to divorce me while protecting your assets, the ones where you talked about your future with a woman you barely know. He tried to interrupt, but I kept going. I've documented everything, every hotel room, every dinner, every piece of jewelry you bought her with our money. $30,000, Tyler. You spent $30,000 of marital funds on an affair. This is insane. You're being strategic. I'm being strategic. Unlike you, who thought I was too stupid or too busy to notice what you were doing. I pulled out another stack of papers. These are statements from Ryan and Melissa confirming you told them about the affair months ago. These are bank records showing you moving money into hidden accounts. These are photos of you and Brianna from just last week. Tyler's hands were shaking. You've been planning this. Just like you've been planning to leave me. I just did it smarter. We can work this out. The therapy was a stalling tactic. You were creating a narrative so you could claim you tried, but I'm done being part of your story. I stood up. I've already moved out. This house is in both our names, so you can stay here until it sells. My attorney will be in touch about asset division. Eve, please, I made a mistake. I love you. We can fix this. No, Tyler, you don't love me. You love the idea of controlling the narrative, of being the good guy who tried to make it work. But you're not the good guy. I picked up my purse and my keys. Oh, and I sent all the evidence to your HR department. Turns out your company has a strict policy about relationships with vendor employees that create conflicts of interest. You might want to check your email. His face went from white to red. You did what? I protected myself, just like you were planning to do. The difference is my plan actually worked. I walked out of that house and didn't look back. The consequences for Tyler were swift and severe. His company launched an investigation into his relationship with Brianna, particularly the trips they'd taken together that were billed as legitimate business expenses. They found that Tyler had falsified expense reports, claiming to be meeting with clients when he was actually with her. He was fired 3 days after Christmas. Brianna's company dropped their vendor contract with Tyler's firm, and she lost her job as collateral damage. Their relationship, built on sneaking around and the thrill of the forbidden, collapsed almost immediately under the weight of real consequences. She blamed him for losing her job. He blamed her for seducing him. It was ugly and public, and I heard about it through mutual friends who were more than happy to share the drama. The divorce was finalized in 4 months. Because of the documented affair and his misuse of marital funds, I got a favorable settlement. The house was sold and I got 60% of the proceeds. I got half of all retirement accounts and savings, plus an additional $30,000 in compensation for the money he'd spent on the affair. Ryan and Melissa divorced 6 months later. It turns out keeping the secret had created a rift between them that they couldn't repair. Ryan felt guilty for not telling me. Melissa felt betrayed that he'd prioritized Tyler's friendship over basic decency. I felt bad about that, but not enough to take responsibility. They'd made their choices. Tyler tried to reach out several times after the dust settled. Apologetic emails, calls I didn't answer, a letter delivered to my apartment claiming he'd made the biggest mistake of his life and begging for another chance. I never responded, because the truth was I didn't hate Tyler. I didn't feel anything toward him at all. He'd destroyed himself with his own choices. I'd just refused to go down with him. 3 years later, I'm 38 and living a life I never imagined. I left the hospital and went back to school. He got my nurse practitioner certification and now run a small private practice focusing on pediatric care. I love the autonomy, the direct relationships with families, the ability to make decisions about my own schedule. I bought a small house. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. Every piece of furniture, every decision about paint colors and landscaping is entirely mine. I've dated casually. Nothing serious yet, but I'm not rushing. I'm learning who I am outside of being Tyler's wife, and that process takes time. I reconnected with old friends I'd neglected during my marriage, built new friendships with colleagues and neighbors, created a support system that isn't dependent on couple friends or shared history. And I heard through the grapevine that Tyler bounced around between jobs for a while before landing at a smaller firm with less prestige and less pay. He dated a few people, but nothing stuck. Last I heard, he was still single, still trying to rebuild a reputation he'd destroyed. I don't think about him often. When I do, it's with a strange detachment, like he's a character from a book I read years ago, rather than someone I shared nearly a decade of my life with. The betrayal was devastating when it happened. The moment I read those messages, something fundamental broke inside me. But it also freed me. I'd been so focused on being the perfect wife, on maintaining the marriage, on doing my part to keep us happy, that I'd lost sight of whether I was actually happy. Turns out I wasn't. I'd just been comfortable. And sometimes comfort masquerades as contentment when really it's just fear of change. Tyler's affair gave me an exit I wouldn't have taken otherwise, not because I condone what he did, but because I was too invested in the sunk cost to walk away from something that wasn't working. The revenge wasn't about destroying him. It was about refusing to be destroyed. He'd planned to control the narrative, to leave me on his terms in a way that protected him financially and socially. I simply didn't let him. And watching him lose everything, his job, his relationship, his reputation, his marriage, while I quietly built something better, that was satisfaction enough. If you were in my place, what would you have done differently? And don't forget to tell me, where are you listening from right now? This is Revenge by Eve, and your voice matters here.
Thanks for watching Revenge by Eve. We hoped you enjoyed the story. See you soon.